Coming up next on the Union Label will be a discussion with Wayne Chambers, the winner of the 2008 W.C. Young Award. Please join us. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Wayne Chambers, congratulations on winning the W.C. Young Award. I know you've won several awards as a union leader down through the years. Is this the top one?
Oh, it's got to be, Barry. Thank you very much, and I appreciate being here today. But yeah, this has got to be my labor career may be winding down, and it's got to be a culmination, and it's just a great honor, a tremendous honor, and I'm just tickled to death to receive it. It's an honor to be nominated, but to be nominated, and you look at the names of people that have received it on the back wall of the Area Council building. There's plaques from each one that has received it, and you look at those pictures and those names, and it reads like a who's who list of union activity in Western Kentucky, and just to know my plaque and my picture will be there, it's a tremendous honor.
Mm-hmm. The first winner, of course, was W.C. Young in 1994. He was a national labor and civil rights leader from Paducah. He died in 1996. We talked about, before the program, another great honor you said you got was special telephone calls. Used to come into Local 665. You were the last vice president of the local, which began as a rubber workers local and wound up as a steel workers local. Tell us about the special phone calls you used to field at the Union Hall.
What I call the special phone calls that I referred to you about were calls that we would get sometimes before all the other officers left. I know they got them too, but after everybody left, and I'd get them every once in a while from somebody that had some kind of a issue, problem, and they wouldn't know exactly where to turn. They'd want a number or a name of somebody, hey, who can I talk to that might be able to steer me in the right direction or help me with this problem.
And these weren't even members of your local. These were just people from the community.
These were people, a lot of times, maybe a member of another local union, and then many times they were not union members. They were just employees of different places, and they would just need some help. And I know I've heard several times that they would say, I've always been told if I needed help, I could always call Local 665. And so I'm calling, I need a name, or I need to be steered in a certain direction. And to me, those were just to know that that we had that reputation as a local union, that people knew they could call. And if there was anything that we could do, not just myself, but all the officers, that they would get that help. Mm-hmm. Had a lady call one time, and her husband had died. And this was one of our members. And she told me that her husband had always told her, if anything happened to him, you call the Union Hall first. Don't call the plant, don't talk to the plant until you've talked to the people at the Union Hall. So mm-hmm. Those were just really special phone calls to get. Mm-hmm. Made you feel real good.
Mm-hmm. Now, you served as vice president of the union from the 90s to 2007 when the plant closed. What was it like the minute you learned that after that plant, I believe the plant opened in 1960, had closed after all these years? Take us back to that day.
We started building the first tires in 1960. The day they called us, the union negotiating committee, to the plant and said they had something they needed to tell us. They were going to make an announcement later that day, but they wanted to give the union committee a heads up, and they announced suspension of tire production. They didn't announce plant closure. They said it was not a plant closure, even though there was going to be hundreds, and at that time we still had about 1,150 people working through the bargaining unit, probably 150 salary people. And when they announced suspension of tire production, we knew that we were on our last leg, so to speak, because that was it. That's what we did. We built tires, and when you got the tires out of there, they said they would continue the warehouse operation for a while, but we knew that was just a matter of time. We walked out of that meeting, and there was some watery eyes and some tears shed, and kind of lumps in the throat where you just really didn't know what to say. We knew that our time would come, but you're never ready for it. And it's many ways it's like a death. In some ways it's worse than a death because it affects so many lives and so many families. And we left that meeting, and I think I'd either drove, and Terry Bean had ridden to the plant with me, or
he was the president.
He was president of the local. We had ridden to the plant together from the Union Hall, and I know riding back to the hall, neither one of us could we couldn't hardly talk. And we got back to the hall, and we always flew an American flag in front of the Union Hall. The flag was flying. It was a pretty sunny day, and I don't know. It was you just felt like you'd just been actually kicked in the gut. Just a gut-wrenching feeling that, well, we've been told that it's coming, and now the reality is that it's here. Mm-hmm. So it was a bad day.
The company that bought it, as a German company, Continental. It was General Tire, an American company. Continental bought it out. When they made noises they were going to close the plant, the union went to them and said, let's try to work something out. Let's try to meet it halfway. Tell us about that. What did you all do to try to keep that plant open?
Originally, when Continental bought it out, the state of Kentucky had kicked in some training money to upgrade equipment and things along those lines, and some of that was done, although probably not near enough money. We kept asking for capital money to be invested into the plant to upgrade equipment, modernize equipment. Our plant was getting old, mm-hmm. and we knew that the plants that we were competing against were being modernized, being updated, and if we didn't have the equipment to match that, then we had one hand tied behind our back, so to speak, and we couldn't compete.
Why do you suppose Continental didn't invest in this plant?
We were told before suspension of tire production that they would build their tires where they could build them the cheapest. And if that meant Mexico, at that time they were contemplating building a plant in Brazil, and later did build that plant in Brazil, but they would build their tires where they could build them the cheapest, and that was not Mayfield, Kentucky. Mayfield, Kentucky was the high-cost plant, but that goes back to the equipment and the old outdatedness of the plant. There was a lot of trucking of material and components inside the plant that was due to the original design.
I can remember back, I guess in the 70s, that Mayfield plant won awards from General Motors, from Ford, because the plant, and I don't know how many people in the area knew it, made original equipment tires. When you bought a new Chevy or a new Ford or a new Plymouth, those tires were on it. And I remember that plant flying a Ford Q1 flag, which is quality one.
Exactly.
So the plant won awards for efficiency and putting out a good product.
There was never a challenge that was put before the workers, be it quality, be it reduction of scrap, be it lost time accidents, workers' comp issues. There was never issues put before the workers, and we were told this challenge must be met, this goal must be met. I do not remember one that was not met. We blowed green scrap targets out of the water, reducing green scrap. Workers' comp. We went from having one of the worst records, and not just in the Continental General Tire chain, but in the entire industry. The good years and all, we had one of the worst records. And we turned that around in the late 80s, early 90s to eventually had one of the best records. Fewest amount of accidents, fewest people hurt. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned with the old bias tires, yeah, we won awards, and we changed from building old bias tires to radial tires. We went to, originally it was all passenger tires. Mm-hmm. And then we added light trucks in the early 70s. We built truck tires for
big trucks,
semi-trucks.
Yeah.
We built mini spares when the mini spares came out, early 90s probably. We built mini spares. We built rear farm tires, huge tractor type tires. So we built everything from a mini spare to a tractor tire in that plant.
Right. Do you suppose that Continental intended to shut that plant when they bought it?
I don't know that it was actually on the drawing board at that time, but looking back, you have to wonder, because we were always told that an industrial plant had somewhere between a 35 and a 45 year lifespan. We exceeded that a little bit. So 45, 47 years, you know, we knew that without the major capital investment and without modernizing the plant, we knew, you know, that it was just a matter of time.
What did the union offer in the way of help to try to cut costs at the plant?
We were willing to look at just about anything that we could have looked at. By the time we got to the point to where we had tried to initiate those discussions, the things that the corporate was telling us that they had to have were just unrealistic. They asked for $35 million in concessions. The year before, our whole payroll had been $55 million, so we would have been taking about a 60% cut. If you just based it on wages, it would have been about a 60% cut in wages. We did some things in health care. We went to a managed care type program, which saved that company millions of dollars. We went to an in-network, out-of-network system where you have to stay with the in-network providers. Matter of fact, our plant was one of the first around in this area that had gone to that. And it saved a bunch of money. And the people had to make sacrifices to do that. When they first set the networks up, some of the doctors, some of the hospitals in this area did not approach that very well, didn't want to get in those networks. I remember some of the doctors saying, I can't be told how I can practice medicine. I've got to practice medicine the way that I want to. So some of the people had to change doctors, had to go from maybe one hospital they'd always used to another one because they had to stay in network to get the full benefit.
Mm-hmm. And that does make you wonder if, again, going back to this, the 60% pay cut, if they knew that couldn't be done. That really makes you wonder if it was a setup, something like that.
Well, I remember the conversation kind of went along the line that we asked, how can we give $35 million per year? This was per year. How can we do that? And the company rep that was meeting with us at that time said, you can't. We know you can't do that, you know. So they basically knew where they were headed.
Mm-hmm. Now these tires that were formerly built in Mayfield, now being made overseas, I remember you commenting that they said they want to make the tires cheaper, but they won't be cheaper to the consumer when they come back into the country. That the only thing enhanced here is the profit picture of the company and their investors.
They've increased their earnings, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The tires that were imported from Mexico or Brazil or wherever, the Continental has several plants in Europe, but regardless of where those tires come from, when they come into this country, they're still priced at the same price that they were being produced in Mayfield or Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The price did not go down.
Mm-hmm. Now you climbed the union ladder from assistant steward to steward, division representative to vice president. In your view, what makes a good union leader?
I think you have to be dedicated, of course, but I think you just almost have to have a desire to want to help people, because that's really, there's good monetary rewards and there's perks to some of the jobs. I've been to Germany twice, and I probably wouldn't have been otherwise. So there are some perks there, but you've just got to have that dedication to really want to help people, because most of the time when someone comes to a union officer, it's not to tell them, hey, you're doing a good job, I appreciate you. They have an issue, they have a concern, and they want it addressed, and they want it addressed and handled to their satisfaction. And sometimes that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another union leader I've had on the program, and you know him very well, is Larry Sanderson.
Yes, I know Larry.
And Larry says, and has said repeatedly, that when it comes to working, politics is so important. But yet there are a lot of union members who are not registered to vote or don't vote. You agree with that if you want things changed, you want things the way you want them, the political arena is where you've got to go. Did you run into that with members of your local who said, politics are all a bunch of crooks, and just blew it all off?
I didn't just run into it. I used to hold that same view when I was younger. I would go to union meetings, and when it got to politics, and our local was always and still is strong in local politics. And
you got one of your, Romy Holmes is a county commissioner who was a
Holmes is a
long
county
time
commissioner.
officer. with the union?
Ronnie Holmes is a member of the Graves County School Board.
Right.
We've had
Fred Nestler was a local 665 member.
Fred Nestler was a local
Yeah.
665. So we've had some former members and officers that have entered the political arena.
So when you were young, you thought that politics is a big board, don't want to fool with this. So what changed your mind?
I enjoyed politics, but especially like in a local sheriff's race or a county judge. In our local, I may be for one candidate. I may have a neighbor or a brother that was for the opponent. And I kind of wonder, does that not divide us sometimes, you know? But through the years, you learn that you need people in certain positions. You help them, they help you. And my view on that changed through the years to where now unions will not survive without politicians and people holding public office that will listen and lend a sympathetic ear to the causes that we endorse as strong. Because we're all working for the common good of people. And politicians really need to realize that and work toward that. And I think we're beginning to see a shift, a change in that. So yes, I've become fully aware that the unions have to be involved. It may not always be the candidate that they endorse that you would pick, but you always take a look at who the unions are endorsing, because overall they're people that hold the same views that we hold.
You mentioned also that, of course, now that the plant is closed in 2007, that you're active involving the steelworkers, SOAR, Steelworkers Association of Retired. Anyway, I can't remember. SOAR.
SOAR.
So how's that going to work? How is that working out?
We will have actually the charter should have already been issued. It's a SOAR chapter, Steelworkers Organized Active Retirees.
Thanks, I couldn't remember.
It's where your retirees, they have a channel there, a vehicle where they can meet and talk about issues that concern them. You can be as social as you want to be. You can get together every month, have a meeting every month, or you can do it every quarter, just ever how involved you want to be. We have, just got a list the other day, we have 1,232 retirees and surviving spouses. So we could have one of the largest SOAR chapters in the country. And you get together and you still have an association with the International. You'll have officers of that SOAR chapter just like you did your local union. And there's usually somebody that goes to the conventions and makes the phone calls to the International and stays in touch with the people that you need to stay in touch with on an international basis, and even somewhat on a corporation basis with Continental, because we still have people that have day-to-day problems that they need issues addressed.
One of the things you did was you helped bring about a unique monument at Graves County. Courthouse lawns are not normally the places where you see union monuments, but Graves County has a monument to your local, the Rock of Labor. Tell us about bringing that to the Graves County Courthouse lawn.
That rock was actually at the Area Council building here in Paducah. It was bought with the intent of doing a workers' memorial monument with it. There were other plans made and went in a different direction there, so this rock became available. And Jeff Wiggins, the president of the Area Council, announced one night that they need to do something with this rock. And he asked if anybody had any ideas, and I said, yeah, I'd like to have it. If it's available, we'll take it to Graves County and we'll find a spot for it, and we'll make a monument to the members, retirees of Local 665. So we went to Judge Tony Smith, and Tony Smith agreed. That local is just, our local, has just been such a dynamic part of that county, and not just Graves County, but we had people from all the surrounding counties that worked there and were members of that local. And everything from supporting little league ball teams, basketball teams. We had coaches out there on ball fields and basketball courts and football fields that worked at the plant. Just charities where money was donated. If there was a worthy charity or whatever, there was usually a collection taken up of some kind to donate money. And the people of that local, our hall is for sale, our union hall. It will be sold. It will no longer probably be a union hall. And there just needed to be something to where there would be some recognition to where when people of Grace County and Mayfield and the surrounding counties passed that there would be a little bit of a flicker there. Hey, this commemorates Local 665.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they are very rare. I did some research on this, and it's really, I can't think of a single courthouse in Kentucky that has a monument specifically to Union members. It is near the Illinois Central Railroad, a little monument to that, and there's a monument there to Operation Desert Storm. And you were quoted in the Mayfield Messenger making a nice comparison. Tell us about that.
It was kind of unique when we approached Tony and Judge Tony Smith and asked him about placing it on the courthouse lawn. He said he thought he could work with the commissioners and be able to find a spot. So we didn't know exactly where it was going to go. We thought, well, he'll stick it back here in a little backyard of the courthouse somewhere, where it won't get a whole lot of recognition. But he fixed us a foundation for it, and it is between the two monuments you mentioned. And that's just unique because we built tires for the big transport trucks in Desert Storm. They had some of our bias tires on those, and they told us that those tires work so good because a radial tire almost looks like they're low on the inflation rate.
Yeah.
The bias tire would kind of ride up on that sand, and they said that was what was unique about those tires. And one of the generals or officers made the statement that those were some of the best tires that we used in Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had a guy in the plant at the time that was quite an artist, and they were using him to paint different murals on the walls in the plant.
Who was that?
That was Mr. Mark Ray. He was at the time was a radial tire builder, mm-hmm. but they took him off his job and actually paid him his hourly rate to paint these murals on the walls. And one of them between Curran and the warehouse was one that was painted in commemoration of Desert Storm. And he did a good job. He had some tanks and trucks and of course had the tires highlighted kind of to where they stood out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Had a big American flag painted. It was really special.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of the older union members that kind of brought you along? I know you mentioned a man named Mason.
H.C. Mason.
Known as Hoochie, was it?
Yeah, Hoochie was General Tire. Most everybody has a nickname, and you may have worked with somebody for 15 years. You may not know their real name, but you would know them by their nickname. We always called H.C. Hoochie Mason. I worked with Hoochie early 70s, mid 70s in the stock prep department. He was a high table operator, and I was a roll changer. We worked together as a crew, two-man crew. And Hoochie told me at the time, I went to union meetings occasionally, but not real regularly. And Hoochie said, "Wayne, you need to go to union meetings, and you need to get involved in the local." Said, "We've got some officers down there, that's not going to be down there forever, and we're going to need new blood, young blood, as we do now." And I kind of took that to heart. And Hoochie was an officer at the time. I believe he was secretary of the local. And as it turned out, that kind of started me down the path, and I've always remembered that about Hoochie.
Mm-hmm. Who's some other people you'd like to mention that really helped your career at one point or another?
I've got the two that I have to thank are Kenny Austin and Terry Bain. We worked together for the last few years there at the hall, and Danny Owens came in a little bit later after Kenny Austin retired. But Terry and Kenny and I, we worked as a team. We worked together.
Now, Kenny, what was his office?
Kenny was treasurer. And he took care of the books and took care of the day-to-day operations, so to speak, of the hall, paid the bills and maintained the hall, and saw that everything ran just as smooth as he could. Mm-hmm. And of course, Terry was the last president of the local, and we all just, that was one thing that was unique about all of our terms. We went in together, and we kind of went out together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Driving by that plant every day, I do, going to work, and the weeds are getting taller and the rust is growing. When you drive by that plant, what do you think about Because I know you drive by it all the time too.
Yeah, I live about probably less than 3 miles from the plant and the hall, and it's almost unreal to drive by it. You know, it's like it's you work there. I know the last time I walked through the plant, walked into the radial tire room, and the machine that I had built on for several years had been taken out. And I could walk down the aisle and I'd think, well, so-and-so built here. This was his machine. I built here. You know, when you think you have the flashbacks of things that had happened and things that had been said and done. And when I left the plant that day, I thought to myself, you know, if I keep my right mind and nothing changes, I won't go back in the plant. It's just, it was emotional, very emotional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are those murals still there, you suppose?
As far as I know, they're still there.
Yeah, yeah. And all the equipment has been taken out. It's just a big shell now, pretty much.
Pretty much. They were working on what we call a calendar, the Z calendar. They were taking it out after the first of the year. This year, they had started taking it out. It was probably the last biggest piece of equipment that was in there.
Mm-hmm. Any rumors you've heard about what might go in that place? Anything at all?
No, I haven't heard. I know there's been some prospects that have looked at it, but it's a huge building, and most industrial plants now are not that large. So it would take something pretty special to need something that big, or possibly somebody buy it and break it up into smaller parts, you know, to be used for different things. Right. I did hear that mentioned that there was somebody looking at it for that, but you know, probably never see it back to the level that it was, employment, payroll, whatever, because most of the states now the companies can go about anywhere in the country mm-hmm. and get assistance in building a plant, manning the plant, putting machinery in the plant. Well, why would somebody buy an almost 50-year-old plant now mm-hmm. When they could go get a new one, more energy efficient, and start over like that in a brand new building?
Mm-hmm. But it really was a godsend to Western Kentucky. You know, in the old days, people went up north to work. I had relatives who did that. I know you did too. And that plant enabled people to stay right here in Western Kentucky, draw good union wages, could work their lifetime, educate your kids, buy a nice house, buy cars and furniture, and all that's gone.
Yes, it is. And that's sad, you know. I look back at my life and my kids, and I was able to give them some things that my parents couldn't give me, and you know, it's just really sad to see it gone.
Thank you for being with us today. Maybe you can come back again sometime. We'll talk some more.
We'll talk war stories next time.
Absolutely.
It'll be more fun.
Hey, we will. I'm Barry Craig. My guest today was Wayne Chambers. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.